Zok the Heilige Mishnah, Hamagadif. If someone is Magadif, so we're up to a new sugya, none of the sensitive material anymore. Hamagadif, Einoi Chayiv Ela Ache Yifaresh Hashem. First thing is, it's being Magadif isn't just cursing. It's going to be very specific how the perpetrator has to be over this affair. But he has to be Mefarish Hashem, as Rashi says, She Yizkars Hashem. He has to say the name of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Can't you say Hashem? Avalam lohoichi shem mipiv, ela shama shem yoytze mipiacher. If somebody else had shem Hashem and he cursed it, ubarchoi potter, that will be wrong. So that's the first ingredient: is the Megadef has to mention the name of Hashem. Amar Rabbi Shua ben Karcha. So Rabbi Shua ben Karcha said the following: B'chol yom, when they would have to paskin Rachman l'tzlan on such a horrible case of Megadef, they wouldn't continuously repeat the same horrible Megadef. They wouldn't repeat it over and over, discussing exactly what was said. So the way they discussed it was Bekinu, which is Yaka Yosy es Yosy. Instead of saying Shem Hashem, the way they substituted the word Yosy for Hashem. I don't know why. What's up with Yosy is like Shem Hashem. I'm not sure. I'm a little flattered, but Rashi will tell us why. Yaka Yosy is Yosy. So now we also learn the structure of the curse has to be that Hashem should hit Hashem. So when you're Mekadav Hashem, you're not saying Hashem should be hurt. Hashem has to hurt Hashem. That is the structure of how Megadav is done. So Rashi tells us why we love the name Yosy, why we love that name. Kama Yosy Ika B'Shuka. B'chol Yoim. Kol Zman Shahoyu Noisin V'Noisnin B'Vedikas Eidim. As they were being boidik to Eidim and discussing what was said, Hayudanin Oisad B'Kinoi. The way they discussed it was not using the Shem Hashem, it was using a kinoi. Kleimar, Hayudanin Imoyen Uboit Kenoisam B'Chinoi, using substitute words. Heich Omar. What exactly did this person say? Kach Omar, Yaka Yosy es Yosy. Zokt Rashi, very important to note. Hi Kinoi, when the Mishnah here is discussing Kinoi, it's not focusing on using a different name of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Loi lav Kino Hashem ka'amar. Ela bezdin mechanin b'divreim ha'klala klape acher. The main focus is they project the klala towards somebody else, not towards Eibishter, because they're talking about this klala. They don't want to continuously talk about a klala connected to Kadosh Baruch Hu, so they talk about the klala connected somebody else. Yosy is the victim. Kol mi she'mahabich dvarav medaber ka'adam zeh shemedaber umekalo v'toilo ba'acher. Anytime you're slightly changing what's going on and you're expressing it differently as if it's happening somewhere else, that is a word that we use the word kinoi to explain it. So kinu could mean a nickname, or kinu could mean the whole discussion is discussed as if it was referencing somebody else. And that's what we're referring to here. Yesh lechaver b'shuos, you find the similar use of the word kinoi. V'gam b'lashon mikra ve'el adam lo yachana ki lo yadati yachana. So now Rashi says why did the Mishnah pick as an example the name Yosy? Yosy as Yosy for two reasons. One is the Dalet Oisios Ika Kishem ben Arba Oisios. Just like Yud Kei Vav Kei is 4 letters, Yosy is 4 letters. The Einoi Chayev Ella al Shem HaMeyuchad, the Hainu Shem ben Arba Oisios. When there's a Chiyah from a Gadif, it has to use the Shem ben Arba Oisios, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Umishum the Cheshboine Shal Yosy, and as well as the Gematria of Yosy, which is 70, which is 86, right? Samach is 60, Yud and Yud is 10 each, 60 plus 20 is 80, and Vav is 6. So 86 is Cheshboine Shal Elokim. The Gematria of Elokim is also 76. 30, Lamed is 30, Mem is 40, that's 70, and Yud is 10, is 80. And Aleph and Hey is 6. So the gematria of Yosy is the gematria of Elokim. Yafin Lakamon, the Ine Chayv Achivarach Shem Bishem. So Zokt Rashi, our Mishnah is explaining exactly what the structure of what a curse is. It's Yaka Hashem Eshem. So that's how it works. Zokt Gemara Vaita. That's only once while they're discussing it. But there has to be a point in time where Bezin hears precisely what it is that the accused had said. So Nigmar Adin, they can't actually kill this person based on testimony that was heard that was not precisely accurate. So at that point, they have everybody leave the Bezdin except for the Edom. And then they asked the greater of the two Edom, tell us precisely what was said. The Omer Loi, Emar Masha Shamata Beferish. Tell us exactly what you said. The Hu Omer, and he says exactly the Shem Hashem with the whole accuracy. The Hadayonim Oimdin al Ragleim V'Koyrin. When the Dayonim hear Rachman Laslan such a horrible statement, they rise kriya, and they're not allowed to fix their kriya similar to a kriya on a mace. Vasheni Omer, and the second day doesn't repeat it again word for word. He just says Af ani kamoyu. I also heard exactly those same words that this first aid heard. V'ashlishi Omer Af ani kamoyu if there's a third aid. So that's how it's done. I remember there was once a time where the caretaker in the shul, they had to fire him because he said he got a little bit out of hand. And he got a little bit out of hand because the government sent the shul a notice that they have to garnish his wages because he had owed either credit card debt or whatever it is that he owed. There was a judgment against him that his wages were garnished. And because of that, because he said something very not nice, disparaging towards Jews, they fired him. And then he filed a complaint with the cursed body of the Labor Relations Board, which is like a communist, anti-business, anti-employer, pro-union body. So the shul had to stand in front of this tribunal to answer his claim that he was not dealt with appropriately. So it was very geschmack, because David Aber was the one who was threatened. He said, I'm going to kill all your Jews, right? So David Aber said over to the adjudicator what it was that this fellow said. And then the adjudicator, who's a woman, turns to the goy, I don't remember what the guy's name was, maybe they have an Italian guy, whatever it is. He says, is that what you said? So could you tell me what you said? He says, you want me to tell you, like he doesn't speak English, you want me telling you exactly what I said it? So he said, yes, please tell us exactly what you said. I said, you effing Jews, effing. He said it with the whole Sheva Mavayish, and she was like short-circuiting. So that's what happened. He had to say exactly what had to be said. So it was so beautiful, because what better testimony is there than the guy himself saying what he said? Okay, no one tore their clothes at the time, but that was good grounds for dismissal. Tona. Shame b'shame. Amar Shmuel, the Amar Kra, the pasuk says v'noikev shame b'nakvay shame yumos. Let's look at the full pasuk because we're going to be focusing on this pasuk quite a bit today. It says v'noikev shame Hashem mosh yumos. Somebody who will curse the name of Hashem should be killed. Ragaim yergemu boy kol ha'eda kager ka'ezrach. And then the pasuk repeats "Benakvay Shem Yumos." So since there's that repeat of "Benakvay Shem Yumos," we learn that it has to be Yivarach Shem B'Shem. Okay, Zakkamar Mimai Dahai Noikev Lishta Devruchayu. Whoever said that the word Noikev means you're cursing Hashem? We touch the Noikev, one who curses Hashem. Who said that's the touch of the word? Dichsiv. It says in the pasuk. Bilam said Ma'ekoy Loy Kavakel. The Azarasai Mehacha, and the Azhara, where is the law that says one may not curse? It says Elokim loy sekalel. It says Elokim loy sekalel V'notzi ba'amcha lo yisar. Frank the Gemara, who said that's what it means? Ve'ema mivrisu. Maybe it means to stab the Shem Hashem. Noikev, like a hole, right? You stab, you make a hole, meaning you have a cloth that Hashem Hashem, and you stab the cloth and you make a hole in it. Maybe that is the Avera that the Torah is referring to. Dichsiv, where do you find Noikev means making a hole? It says Vayikev chor bedalto. He poked a hole in the door. Vazarasa, and where do you see that there's a lav against making a hole, puncturing a cloth that has a name of Hashem in it? It says V'ibadatem es shemom, destroying the name, meaning like putting a knife through it and tearing the cloth with the name of Hashem written on it. And then it says Lo sasen kein l'Hashem Elokeichem. I'm sorry? That's correct. But it says Lo sasen kein l'Hashem Elokeichem, right? So it's referring to that. V'nitaktem es mizbechoisam, v'shibartem es matzevoisam, v'asherayim tishru v'eishu, v'suloi Eloheihem tigadeyun. And then it says V'ibadatem Hashem in the Mokamahu. And then it says Lo sasen kein l'Hashem Elokeichem. So Zok Gemara, you know why it cannot be that? Because ba'ina shem b'shem v'leka. If you're punching a hole in the cloth, you're doing it with a knife. You're not doing it with the shame. So therefore, the only way you could have shame b'shem is by articulating. Frank Gemara, who said, maybe you take two cloths that each have the name of Hashem written on it, and you put one on top of the other, ubazalahu, and you poke a hole through the top and into the bottom one, so you're like pushing the top one into the bottom one, so you're making the top shame tear the bottom shame. Zok Gemara, that's not making the top shame tear the bottom shame. That's putting a hole, that's puncturing a hole through two different gloves. Frank Gemara, maybe you write Hashem Hashem on one sharp knife, ubaza ba, and then you puncture a hole in a cloth with the knife that had the Shem Hashem written on it. So that's not either a noikiv shem b'shem. Hahu churfa disakina hu dekabaza. It's the sharpness of the knife that's cutting it. Just because the Shem Hashem is written on the knife, it still doesn't make it that one shem was damaging the other shem. So practically, okay, we're going to abort that option. But maybe noikiv just means to speak out, to articulate the Shem Hashem. You're not allowed to articulate the Shem Hashem. Ema perusha shemeyu. Maybe that's what it is. Where do you find Noikev means to articulate something? That were identified by name. So maybe that's what the Noikev Shem means. You just articulate the name of Hashem. As Hashem tira, and part of Yirash Hashem is not to articulate his name. Zok Gemara, that cannot mean either. Because the beina Shem b'Shem. You can't articulate the name of Hashem with the name of Hashem. It's an impossibility. There's no lav there. It says Es Hashem Tira, and from there you know you're not allowed to say Shem Hashem in vain. That's Asharis Hasei. Asharis Hasei Loishma Asara, and therefore it won't be adequate to kill somebody. You need a lav that says that this action is prohibited. V'bayisema, or another reason why it can't just mean speaking out, articulating the name of Hashem, is because Amar Kra vayikov vayikalel. When it talks about the Megadev, the pasuk says vayikov ben ha'isha Yisraelos es Hashem vayikalel. So there's two things happening over here. So vayikov can't mean vayikalel. Lememra, so Zoktimar Lememra the Noikev klolahu. I'm sorry, fakert. I spoke wrong. It says Vayikav Vayikal, so the pasuk clearly is defining the Vayikav as a klola, as Vayikal.
How can there be a havamina that it's usher to or there's a lav to pronounce the name Yud Kei Vav Kei if we see it pronounced throughout the Torah in dialogue?
Maybe it means the long name.
The 72 letter we're talking?
Yeah, that's what it's referring to. Yeah. Okay. Zok to Gemara, Vidil Ma'ada Ovid Tarvayu. Maybe you have to do two things. You have to be, the issue involves Vayikov and Vayikal. So maybe there's two things that have to be done. Zok to Gemara, again, Lo Yisol Kedaitach. The Chsiv at the end, it says, Hoyche es a Mekalel, So obviously it wasn't two things. It was one action, and the only thing that it can mean is Shem b'Shem. Shema mino chadavi. Okay, so now we finally nail down precisely what is the lav, what is the violation of Mikala. Tanu Rabbanu, Ish. Ma tamad loimer Ish. Ma tamad loimer Ish. L'rabbis is ha'evdei kechafim. So let's look at the pasuk inside. The pasuk is Vel b'nei Yisrael tidaber leimer Ish ki yikalel eleikov v'noso chetay. So the pasuk of Vayikra uses a double lotion of Ish. Why did the Torah say Ish? The rabbis as ha'evdei kechavim shemisarin al bilchas Hashem ki Yisrael. A goy is also prohibited from being a Megadif. But how does a Yid get killed? A Yid who's Megadif, we said, gets killed b'skila. But a goy ve'eino neharagin elo b'sayif, they only get hereg. Shekol misa ha'amura b'vnei noach eino elo b'sayif. The goyim have one misa. They don't have the variety of misas that we have. Every time they violate the Torah and it demands that they get killed, it's b'sayif. Frank the Gemara. Are you telling me the pasuk that tells us that the goy is included in the Isra Megadif is from this Ish ki kalal aloikov? Mehasam nafka. We actually have a whole new limud, and the Gemara is going to darshan very interestingly the pasuk where Kadosh Baruch Hu was talking to Adam Arishon. And if we look at this pasuk here at the bottom, Vayitzav Hashem Elokim al ha'adam leimor mikoil eitzagan achoil toichel. The Gemara is going to darshan all of the Sheva mitzvahs in the Noach, how they're included in this single pasuk. Vayitzav Hashem Elokim al ha'adam leimor mikoil eitzagan achoil toichel. And Vayitzav Hashem, when we learned the whole Russia, the word Hashem in that pasuk is Zu Birchas Hashem. That's where he was commanding Noach that Birchas Hashem is Osir. So how could you say it's from Ish? We know it's from Es Hashem, but it's from Hashem in the pasuk. Zok the Gemara, Amr Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha lo nitzricha ela l'rabois es hakinuyin. The reason why we have two psukim is one is marba all the kinuyim. So not only is it also if you say the main shame of Hashem when one is cursing, even if there's other names that are used. Let's see what Rashi says. Lo nitzricha hai ish. The pasuk of Ish ela l'rabois es hakinuyin is saying that it's not only also to curse Hashem using the main Shem Hashem, but even other words for the name Hashem. So not only Yud Kei Vav Kei, but other Shemos as well. Sheyuha akum musarin al b'choset ki Yisrael. Not only are Yidden mitzvah not to curse HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name in any one of its forms, a goy as well. The Mehasam, if it was only from Vayitzav Hashem in the parsha by Adam, Hava Mina Shem Hamayucha Davka, Echsev Hashem. The high Elohim, the Behukra, La Saras Abedizar, the Shinin Le Kamon. Okay, Gavaltic. So when it says Vayitzav Hashem Elohim, it might only be speaking. It might only be speaking about the Shem Hashem. So the Rashi says, but it says Elohim. Elohim would be a kinui. Elohim, the word Elohim was used not to tell us about cursing Hashem. That was talking about Avodah Zarah. So therefore, Vayitzav Hashem would say, you'd only know that if someone is Megadif Hashem in Yud Kei Vav Kei, that one, Kamash Malon, Ishish Ki Kal Elakav, it even includes the word Elohim. Okay. Dr. Gemara, Va'aliba de Reb Meir. And this stems with the Meir, because Reb Meir is the one who told us that a goy is Mechuyev on Kinuyim. The Tanya we learned, Ish Ki Yikal Elakav, V'nosa Chetoi, Ma Tamad Loimar, I Va'aloy Kfar Nemar, V'noikev Shem Hashem, Moish Yumos. We already know that a Yid who curses Hashem is Moish Yumos. L'fisha Nemar, V'noikev Shem, Moish Yumos, Yochel Lo Yechayiv Ela Al Shem Hamiyuchad Bilvad. You might think someone's only mechuyev on the Shem Hashem, as Rashi says, Doksiv Hashem behind you Shem Miyuchad. Doksiv Zeh Shmi Lo'ilam, referring to Yud Kei Vav Kei. Milayin l'Rabbis Kol HaKinuyim. How do you know cursing Hashem with any one of the Kinuyim also violates Megadev? Hamad Loimer Ish Ki Yikalel Eloikav Mikol Mokai. Divrei Reb Meir. So Reb Meir learns that from Ish Ki Yikalel Eloikav, and from Ish we learn that a Yid and a Goy, no matter what kinui they use, there's going to be a chiyuv for Megadef. The Chachamim, but the Chachamim argue, and they say Al Shem HaMeyuchad b'Misa. The only time Megadef receives the oynish of Misa is if he was Megadef with the Shem HaMeyuchad. But Valakinuyim, if he was Megadef Hashem with one of the Kinuyim like Elohim, Vasara, that's a lav, but there is no Misa for it. So he doesn't darshan Ishish Ki Kalav Alekov. So based on this machloikis quoted by Rav Yitzchak Nafcha, our Gemara is following the sheet of Reb Meir, who holds that just like the main name of Hakadosh Baruch Hu, there's a violation of Megadef, so too a kinu. Upligo de Rab Maisha, but this whole concept of Reb Yitzchak Nafcha argues on Rab Maisha because Rab Maisha had a different way to look at the machloikis Reb Meir and the Chachamim. The Amar Rab Maisha. Ben Noach Shabirch as Hashem bechinuyim l'Rabbanon chayiv. According to Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha's understanding, according to the Rabbanon that argue on Rab Meir, there is no chayiv for the chinuyim. It's only ba'asara. But Rab Maisha learns that even the Rabbanon hold that if a guy curses HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name bechinuyim, it's going to be chayiv. My timer, how does he know this? He knows that the Omar Krok Hager Ka'ezrach. So let's look back at the pasuk of B'noikev es Hashem. It says in the pasuk, B'noikev es Hashem, it's all the way at the top over here. B'noikev Shem Hashem Hashumos, Rogam Yirgam Uboy, Kol Ha'eda, Kol Ger Ka'ezrach. You know whose violation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name by cursing it is limited only to the Shem Hashem and not to Kinuyim? That's Kol Ger Ka'ezrach. B'nokvei Shem Yimos. Only a Ger and a Ezrach, a Yid, who curses the Shem Hashem with a kinui is bi'ashara. But a goy, even if he uses a kinui, he will get misa. Only a ger and a ezrach gets killed only for the Shem Havaya itself. A goy, even if he is mevarach at Hashem bekinui, he will also get misa. So he's clearly not using ish tiyakal lekov to include goyim, because he's saying, I'm sorry, he's doing ish tiyakal lekov will include goyim, because from kager ka'ezrach you clearly see that it includes goyim. It's only Yidden who their chiyuv misa is limited to the Shem Hashem itself. V'Rab Meir, hi kager ka'ezrach my ovidlei. The Baal Reb Meir learns that a goy and a yid is exactly the same, so he doesn't have the limit from kager ke'ezrach to make a distinction between the chiyuvim of a yid and the chiyuvim of a goy. So Zok Gemara, he'll use it to teach us something else. Ger ve'ezrach b'skila. Only a yid gets skila for Megadef as Hashem. Aval oivit kechavim b'sayif. But the goy will get sayif. Why would I think that a goy should get skila? Doesn't a goy get sayif for everything? So Kadai Chamina, Hoil the Israbu. Since they were included from Ishish Ki Kala Lekov, they were included in the same tzivui of Megadef as a Yid. So maybe they're completely included even Legabi the Chi of Miso. Kamash Malam, Kager Ke'ezrach, only a Ger and a Ezrach gets Skila, but a Goy will only get Sayif. Zogt Gemara, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, Aliba de Rabbanon. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, according to the Rabbanon, learn that you don't get punished for kinuyim. So then once again, again, what's the distinction between a ger and between a yid and a goy? There's no difference, because either way they don't get killed for kinuyim. So to Gemara, he'll use it differently. Ger ve'ezrach hu davi'inon shem b'shem. Shem b'shem. That pasuk says b'nok v'shem, right? That pasuk is where we learned that in order to violate Megadef, you have to curse the name of Hashem with the name of Hashem. A goy doesn't have to do that to violate, because only a ger ke'ezrach has to follow that script, that structure to violate. A goy, even Tamazay who curses Hashem, will violate. And ish lamali, what are we trying to include a goy for? So tomorrow it doesn't teach you anything, ish, because dibra Torah kaloshon b'nei adam. even though there's a pasuk that seems to indicate a goy, because that's what the Reb Meir used ish ish for. They won't make any hay out of that. They'll just say that ish ish is lashon b'nei adam, and it doesn't include goy. Okay, that tells us how the limudim are used. But now we have a series of shilas. We know for sure Shem b'Shem with Shem Hashem. For sure, there's a chiv misa aside for a yitzai for a goy, and it would be skila. Then we have if it was one of the kinuyim, and there's a shaila if it's asara, or if there's a chiv misa, we had that shaila. Then we said even if it is only asara, is that all for a yid, or is it and for a goy it's still a chiv misa, or is it even asara for a yid? Right, that was told in the machlokes of Meir and the Chachamim. And then we have the shaila of what misa they get. Does the goy get skila like a yid, or does a goy get herek? And then the last shaila is, does a goy have to be noikev shem b'shem, or even if a goy stam curses, it's also a violation of the gada. Tana Rabban, Sheva mitzvahs nitztavu b'nei Noach. There were 7 mitzvahs, and we're going to soon see it's 7 categories of mitzvahs was commanded to the b'nei Noach even before Klal Yisrael. Didin. Now the Pashat Pshat and Dinim means all of the Choshen Mishpat, the Kedinim, and the fact that they have to set up a bezdin. Okay, that's number 1. Ubirchas Hashem, which we've discussed extensively here. Avodah Zarah, Gilur Arayos. So Gilur Arayos, Rashi says, Kulon Chutz Minayir Hamarasa. All of the arayos that are prohibited for a yid are prohibited for a goy, except for Nair Hamarasa, because if you remember, Bnei Noach does not recognize kedushin; they recognize living together. So therefore, Nair Hamarasa is before they're living together. So that's not one of the isurim of arayos that apply to a Bnei Noach. Shvichas damim is murder. The Gezel ve'ever minachai. So dinin birchas Hashem avodah zarah gilu arayos shvichas damim. Gezel and ever minachai. There we have the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. Zok to Gemara. Reb Chananya ben Gamliel Omer, I believe the Aleph changes to Gamliel. Af al hadam minachai. Dam from a live animal or from a live person is they're also musar for. Rav Chitka Omer af al hasirus, they're not allowed to be misaris. They're not allowed to neuter. Rav Shimon Omer af al akishuv, they also are prohibited from engaging in kishuv. There's more than 7. That's right. So Sheva mitzvah Noach means the 9 mitzvahs of Bnei Noach. Yosy Omer kol ha'omar b'parshas kishuv. Any of the averos listed in the parsha of kishuv, which are directly kishuv, there are different types of things. Ben Noach muzar alov. What are those?
Are they adding from Manya, or are they saying this one extra?
Well, every one of these mandam are adding an additional. Kananya adds.
I know,
Daven Chai?
including the one from before.
Or does each one agree with the one before? Is it cumulative? I don't know. It's a good child. So let's see the pasuk inside. Lo yimotei b'cha maver v'noi uvitei ba'esh. That's one type. Koisem ksamim me'oinei u'menachesh u'mechashev. I don't know what each one of these affairs are. V'choiver chavar v'shoyel oy v'yadoini v'doyer shalamesim. If we look at the pasuk inside, there's more in this list. It says, let me see if I can get this to focus. V'doyer shalamesim ki to'avas Hashem koil oisei ela uveglal hato'ev oisei ela Hashem alakecha moirish oisei mipanecha. Clearly, they weren't allowed to do these things because it's because they engaged in these things. Hashem chased the goyim out of Eretz Yisrael. V'lo anash elam ken hizer. We know they were punished because the pasuk says they were thrown out of Eretz Yisrael for it. So it must be that they're prohibited from doing it. Because if they weren't prohibited from doing it, why would Hashem throw them out without telling them that they're not allowed to do that? Abu Lozer af ala kalayim, kalayim as well, but it doesn't mean they can't wear shatnez. That's not what it means, because the Rebbe Lozer explains mutarin b'nei noach lil boish kalayim v'lizroya kalayim. The type of kalayim that they're prohibited for is cross-breeding of animals. They nasurin ela b'harbas behema ubeharkava se'ilam. They're not allowed to crossbreed animals, and they're not allowed to graft different species trees into one another. That's what they're prohibited from as far as the Isser of Kalayim applies. Where did we see these Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach? And now we're going to darshan that pasuk of Hashem speaking to Adam. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, the Amar Kra, it says in the pasuk, "Vayitzav Hashem Elokim ala Adam leimor mikola eitz hagan ochel toichel." And now we're going to darshan this pasuk. Very interesting drasha. Vayitzav elu hadinim. That's referring to dinim. So that's the first one of the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach. They have to have the system of law and order. That's from the word Vayitzav. The Chenu Omer, how do you know Vayitzav means dinim? Because it says that Kadosh Baruch Hu told Avram, Ki yadativ l'man asher yitzava es bonov. And let's have a look at the full pasuk. It says, Ki yadativ l'man asher yitzava es bonov es bezay achrov v'shamru derech Hashem lasos tzedakah u'mishpat, which is dinim, l'man havi Hashem al Avram asher diber elav. So that's how we know that Vayitzav refers to dinim. The Bnei must be very smart because they were able to figure out from one word exactly what a Kadosh Baruch Hu meant. Right? We needed the Gemara to tell us, but Adam chap from Zechalein. Es Banov. I'm sorry. Vayitzav is Elodin v'cheinu Omer. Okay, and then it says Hashem zu birchas Hashem. That's how it's relevant to our sugya. V'cheinu Omer v'noikev shem Hashem moishumas Elokim. That's referring to zu avoidus kachavim. V'cheinu Omer lo yilacha Elohim acherim. That's in the Seres Adibrais. Al ha'adam, zu shvichas damim, that's prohibiting shvichas damim. The chenu omer, shoivich dam ha'adam v'adam yishavech. Okay? Lemar is zu gili arroyos. The chenu omer, lemar hein yishalach is es ishtoi. V'halcha mi'itoi. V'hoisa li'ishacher. So that's referring to znus. That's what lemar means. Then Hashem said, Mikol eitz hagan. From the eitz hagan. But v'lo gezel. In other words, you're only allowed to eat because HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed you to eat it. If you were not allowed to take it, you can't take it. So there's the prohibition of Gesel. Ochel toichel, you can eat only from specific things. V'loi ever min achai. So this is how we see the Sheva Mitzvah B'Noach all included in that one pasuk. Yosy Rabbi Yitzchak Tani Ipcha. He actually understood and interpreted the pasuk slightly differently. Vayitzav isn't referring to dinim. Zu avoidus kachavim, and Elokim zu dinim. So Zokmar Bishlam Elokim zu dinim. I understand. Dichsev nikvus balabais Elohim. So you see that Elohim means dinim, means best. Elovayitzav zu avoidus zora. Where do you see avoidus zora? Merum is in the word vayitzav. My mashma. So Kamar B'chistav Rabbitzak Bar Avdima Echad Amar Saru Maher Min Aderech Asher Tzivisim Osulam Egel Masecha. So you see the word Tzivisim Tzav is associated with avoidus zora. Echad Amar Oshik Ephraim was robbed, rotetz mishpat, he was smashed, ki hoyel holach acharei tzav, because he went after the commandments of the Nevi'eh Habal. So you see there tzav is referencing avodah zarah. My benai, what's the difference if the reference to avodah zarah comes from osulachem egel masecha or comes from holach acharei tzav? So Dr. There's a very big difference. Ike benayu. Is there an Isser just to make the avodah zarah without even serving it? If it's referring to the asul ha'egel masecha, the aver is merely making the egel even before they even bow down to it. But the other pasuk of Oshik Ephraim means halach acher tzav. They're already serving the avodah zarah. So therefore, ikbenayu akum she'asa avodah zarah v'lo yishtachav l'man da'amar asu mishas asim echayiv. Merely for making the avodah zarah, there's already a chiyuv. L'man da'amar ki hoyel holach ad ozul basro palachla. You're not over until you actually serve the avodah zarah. Zok Gemara Amar Rava umi ika l'man da'amar akum she'asa avodah zarah v'lo yishtachav l'chayiv. Can you tell me there's actually a mandamar who holds that a goy will be chayiv for avodah zarah merely by making the avodah zarah without even serving it? The Tanya we learned be akum dvarim shebezdin shel Yisrael mamisin alein v'neich muzar aleim. The only type of averis that is prohibited for a goy to do in the hilchos avodah zarah are things that if a yid did it, the yid would get killed. But ein bezdin shel Yisrael mamisin aleim. If this activity would not lead to a chiv misa for a yid, ein v'neich muzar aleim. What exactly, what aver are we referring to that this brach is trying to tell us that a goy is not musar? Lav lemutei akum she'asa avodah zarah lo yishtachavlo. That's probably what it's referring to. Because a Yid who merely makes an avodah zarah but doesn't serve it, does not get killed. So therefore we should say that a guy who makes an avodah zarah doesn't serve it is not over. Amar Papa loy. That's not what what the Braisa is trying to exclude. Avada goy will get killed even for merely making avodah zarah if that's where we learn it from. If we learn it from the Egel. Rather, Shlamute give pup v'dishuk. Hugging and kissing the avodah zarah, that's what a goy would not get killed for. Frankly, let's analyze what this exactly means. Give of v'dishuk, hugging and kissing an avodah zarah, demai. Ilema kedarka. If that is the normal way to serve this avodah zarah, like a balpor, you do that. A markulish, you throw stones at. And this getchka, you do nishik or gipov, well, that's bakatolahu, because you're serving it in the way that it's designed to be served. Now, there are universal avoiders that are also no matter what, like hishtach avodah. But the unique type of avoiders are only a chiv misa if these are the prescribed avoiders for this particular avodah zarah. What it means is, what if the way to serve this avodah zarah is not through gipov, and not through nishuk, and you did it that way, so there a Yid doesn't get misa for it, and therefore a goy will not be musar. Dinin, you're telling me, Dinin b'nei Noach, if good, you're telling me that the b'nei Noach had a tzivui on Dinim. I'll show you that didn't come until later, and that was only given to Klal Yisrael. V'tanya, it says, Eser mitzvahs nitztavu Yisrael b'mora. 10 mitzvahs Klal Yisrael received in Mora. Sheva, shekiblu alayim b'nei Noach. First, there's the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. Klal Yisrael was once again commanded to do in Mora, but vasifa alayim in Mora, Klal Yisrael got 3 additional mitzvahs. Dinin v'Shabbos v'kibur avei. Dinin d'chsev sham sam loy choik u'mishpat. Shabbos v'kibur avei d'chsev in the second Aseret Dibros, it says kasher tzivcha Hashem alokecha. Where did Hashem tell you? It must be referring to Mora. So if an extra mitzvah over and above the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach were given to Klal Yisrael alone in Mora, isn't that proof positive that Dinim wasn't there before? So how could you tell me that Dinim is one of the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach? Avad the Dinim were from the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach. What was added in Mora? Ada, that you need a bezin of 23 to paskin on the Chi of Misa. You need a proper Adam, and you need proper Esra. In other words, certain details of how to paskin, that was added to Klal Yisrael in Mora. Frankly, Mora, that does not make sense, because that's not what the words say. Yachi maiva hasifa aleim dinin. Hasifa aleim dinin means the whole concept of dinim was given to them. You're just telling me some details. That's not vasifu aleim dinin. Klal Yisrael never had this whole chapter of Dinei Knossos. They only had Dinei Mominus. Dinei Knossos were added by Mora. Frankly, Mora, then it's still not the right nusach. Akati v'ayisivu b'dinin mibayalei. It should have said there was some addition in the dinim. It's a mashma v'ayisivu dinin. The entire concept of dinim was added in Mora. Ella Amar Rab Acha bar Yaakov le'nitzricha ela lahoishiv bezdin b'chol plach u'plach u'b'chol ir v'ir. When it says Haishifal of Dinim, it means they were commanded that they have to have a regional Batei Dinim and they have to have Batei Dinim in every city. That's what they were given extra in Mora. Are you telling me that was exclusively a commandment given to the Yidden, but it's not included in the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nei Noach? Well, Tanya, we learned, Kishem Shenet Tavu Yisrael Lahishiv Batei Dinim B'chol Plach U'Plach U'B'chol Ir V'Ir Kachnit Tavu B'nei Noach Lahishiv Batei Dinim B'chol Plach U'Plach U'B'chol Ir V'Ir. Ella Amarava, we have to abort, and we need to find out what are these dinim that were given specially to the Yidden by Mara that were not given to the B'nai Noach. Ella Amarava Haitana Tana Devei Menashahu. I'm sorry? But the B'nai Noach were only in Tztava by the B'nai Noach. There are no new mitzvahs that came out for the B'nai Noach later on. So Zok to Gemara, when the Gemara listed off the list of B'nai Noach, this Tana actually takes off Dinim and Birchas Hashem. So Dinim and Birchas Hashem were listed in the original list that we said earlier as 2 of the Sheva Mitzvah Noach. There's a Tana who holds that Dinim were not given to B'nai Noach. And instead of Dinim and Birchas Hashem, he sticks in Sach, Sirus Uklayim. it uses those. So could be those Tanaim aren't adding, they're substituting. Maybe that's what it meant. But I'll call upon them. Maybe there's a Shita who holds that the Bnei Noach were not Mitzvah and Dinin. It was given to Klal Yisrael in Morah. Okay. Zog to Gemara weiter. The Tanna Devei Menashe Sheva Mitzvahs Netstavu Bnei Noach, and you'll see Dinim is not in his list. Avod Yizara, Begilu Arayis, Shvichas Tomim, Gezel, Ever Minachai, Sirus, and Klaim. So there was no Dinim given over to the Bnei Noach. Rabbi Yehuda Eimer, Adam Arishan loy nitztave ela al avod yizar bolvat. Rabbi Yehuda holds that Adam Arishan did not get all Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach. So he doesn't darshan the pasuk like we darshaned it to include all the Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach. He holds from that whole pasuk, all you see is avod yizar. Shenemar v'yitzav Hashem alakim ala Adam, and that's referring to avod yizar. And Rabbi Yehuda Eimer af al birchas Hashem. That pasuk also includes birchas Hashem. V'yesh Eimerim af al adinim. But I'll call upon him, he does not darshan that pasuk the way we did. So now we're going to need to know, according to this brisa, according to the shita of Rabbi Yehuda, how does he know all of the Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach? Right? Our makor was the pasuk, and that was just blown out of the water. According to who does this following brisa that we're about to quote follow? That HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Adam, Elakimani, I am HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore loise kalaluni, don't curse me. So there was an Isra of Megadef given. Elakimani, I am God, lois hamiruni, don't trade me for somebody else. In other words, don't do avodah zarah. Elakimani, yemarai aleichem, be afraid of me and not of people pressure, meaning have a proper set of dinim. Have a proper set of dinim, a just courts that isn't swayed by people who could be intimidated. Come on. It's going to be Kayesh Aimrim. That's going to be like this Yesh Aimrim that we said, Af Aladinim, and the Bnei Noach were Nitztava on Birchas Hashem, on Avodah Zarah, and on Dinim. Tanad Ve Menashe, Fake Gemara, Tanad Ve Menashe, I Darish Vayitzav. If he darshans the pasuk like we did, well then Afilu Hanachnami. Then he should also include all of these Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach in the list that we used the pasuk to darshan from. And he Loi Darish Vayitzav. Well, then, Hani Minole, how does he bechlal know any of the Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach if he doesn't darshan the psukim the way we did? But Hani kol chada v'chada ba'panaf sheksiva. His version of the Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach, there's a special limud for each one, and it's not so neatly packaged into one pasuk. It's from all over the place. Avodah Zarah v'gilu arayis. Where does he learn Avodah Zarah and Gilu Yarayis that Bnei Noach wore a mitzvah on that Aveira? Dichsiv by the Mavot, Vatishachei Sa'aretz Lefnei Ha'elokim. Those are the words of the pasuk. V'tanda Devei Rabbi Shmuel Kol Mokem Shenemar Hashchasa. Whenever the Torah refers to a society doing a shchasa, Einoi Elo Dvar Erva. It's referring to Erva. So you see, it's Arayis. V'avodas Kechavim Dvar Erva. I'm sorry, it's referring to Avodas Kechavim. And the Avodah is Dvar Erva, Shenemar, Ki Hishchis Kol Basar is Darkly. Zok to Gemara, so let's say Ki Hishchis Kol Basar Darkly Lords, I'm sorry, it's Gila Rais, I'm making a mistake. So, but Tishachis Aretz, we learn Mida Anish Alayu, since Klal Yisrael got an Oynish word, since the world of Bnei Noach got an Oynish word, Shemamino Ifkud Alayu, clearly there must have been a prohibition. Ki Hishchis Kol Basar Darkly Lords, that's referring to Giloi Rais, the Chsiv, Derech Gever Ba'alma. The Dora Mabul al Harais Nenshu. The Dora Mabul were punished for Harais. The Chsiv Vayiru B'nei Elohim Es B'nois Adam Ki Toivois Heino. Okay. V'tan V'shon Chamak Shemesh Chaza Eino Elo Dvar Erva. Okay. The Avodah Kavod, referring to both. Dvar Erva Shenever Ki Hishchis Kol Basar Darkly Lords, and the Avodah Kachavim the Chsiv Pen Tashchisun V'asisem Pesel B'chol Tmuna. Okay. The Idich. Now, if you learn it from the pasuk where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Mitzvah Adam, so what does he do with these psukim? Urchayu the Kamegali. All the Torah was doing here was not establishing the Isser. He was just saying what happened over there. Man the Dorish Vayitzav, Amalach Asar is from Vayitzav, who's the Adam Rishon, the Gabidor Mabul, Urchayu Megali, Ladiachal Manenchu. The Torah is just telling us why they were punished, but that's not the makar of the prohibition. Shvichas Domim. How do you know Shvichas Domim was also to the Bnei Noach? Dichsiv Shoivech Dama Odom Ba'odom Dami Shavech. Again, ve'idach. What if you learn it from the original pasuk that we did? Katlayu hu de kamagali. It's just telling him the ezoi misa yamisam. It's just telling the Torah is just trying to tell us how do you kill someone who is a Ritzayah. Okay, one more. Gezel d'chsiv keyerek esav nasati lachem es koil. This Baruch Hu told Noach after the Mabul, I'm giving you everything like Yerek Esav. So vice the choice, Esav, Kari Esav, something that's heifer, that I gave you. Meaning there are certain things that were cultivated by a person, which is ownership over, which you wouldn't be able to take. I'm letting you have meat just like I'm letting you have Yerek Esav. Yerek Esav is not something that someone cultivated and planted. It's like a public. So you see, these are Gzela, but if it's the Yerek of a Gino that someone worked hard to make, that you wouldn't be able to just walk over and take. And if we know Gzela from the pasuk of Eitzav again, that pasuk would just to be mater basar to be eaten by Noach. Okay, we'll stop here and we'll tomorrow. Much easier than yesterday.